Good day, my dear undergraduate students. This is a know-how class to show you how to read pathology and what are the patterns in pathology. Incidentally, there is an enclosure over here telling us go to playlist. Playlist is nothing but an index of the various chapters covered. In it, we will be finding the undergraduate theory, the undergraduate practical, undergraduate spotters, and postgraduate also. We shall be choosing what is required for us. And this shall be sequentially telling us the various components that have been covered. All that you have to do is to switch on the system and listen. Incidentally, this is a question paper from the MGR Medical University. It is paper 2 and there is a question paper code that is given. I just wanted to analyze this paper. There is an essay question on nephrotic syndrome and a component of nephrotic syndrome, namely membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis. A very standard question asked over the decades, and it is easy for the student to answer. But then, in short notes, carrying nearly 4 marks, there is another question, liquid-based cytology. This is a pure postgraduate question which an undergraduate cannot answer. Also, you find that there is another question on sarcoidosis. This is a topic that we will tend to postpone or omit. It has come as a question for us. Even I have not covered this in my classes on R.A.T.S. I shall be including it shortly. To my right, I find that there are certain other topics. The Negri bodies, a pure microbiology question. Read index, more as an MCQ but difficult to answer. Helicobacter pylori belongs to microbiology, pharmacology, as well as pathology. And R.A.T.S is more of an MCQ, difficult to answer. In any paper, there will be 5% of questions which will be difficult for the students to answer. But with so much of difficult questions, I think it is a doomsday for the students. That is why I have put up this paper. What are we seeing on the screen? An act of balance. It is a skill. We need not be very skillful in each and every component of every subject. It is not possible at all. Maybe over the period of years, after you pass your post-graduation, when you really start learning, you will start learning the skills. Until then, we are students and we are undergraduate students. So, do not try to master every skill. Finally, you will give up. That is what usually happens. I always have a habit of starting from behind. I always go to the question paper. Find out what are the segments of the paper. In pathology, for instance, you have got general pathology, hematology, and clinical pathology. These two will be forming paper 1. And systemic pathology 1 and 2 will be forming paper 2. And these are the chapters you'll be finding them in any book. Some might be there. That is why I mentioned the word miscellaneous. For example, salivary gland, eye, etc. From these chapters, you might not get an essay question. But essay questions are very common in heart, rheumatic heart disease, leukemia, AML, inflammation, chemical mediators, neoplasia, spread of tumors. Like that, there will be the questions which are consistent essay questions. These are so-called must-know questions. So you should be familiar with the various chapters now itself. Do not wait for the teachers to complete them and then go and search for the book when a test is being announced. Familiarity is half completion. The question that you omit now is your university question. What am I supposed to do? I have shown you an example of a question paper. Try to get hold of 10 years questions. First, from your own university. It can be a deemed university. As much as possible, in continuity, try to get 10 years. If not possible, always you should have a second university, the MGR Medical University, for example, or the Rajiv Gandhi University, or JIPOM, any one other. I'm recommending a second line of defense because it is probable that one university will be omitting some question or the other, which can come in our paper. Therefore, we should not omit any questions and preferably two sources of questions 10 years in continuity. And you will be having your own question bank. It is not that downloading alone is not enough. Try to spend some time dividing them chapter wise. And in an ordinary notebook, a 40-page notebook, try to write the questions chapter wise. Now you have got an idea as to what to read, how much to read, and what are the other subjects which have got an overlap with this. So question bank is the main weapon in my armamentarium. What is your comment on this? I'm just seeing a question, nothing else. And one person called Dixon, he has written one book, a 40-page book on medicine, the approach to medicine. And he has said, the greatest fool can ask more questions than the wisest man can answer. Take any particular question, a lot of other questions can permeate from it. Rheumatic heart disease. You can be asked about the criteria, you can be asked about the vegetations, cardiac manifestations, extracardiac manifestations, pathogenesis. And when it comes to vegetations, there are other diseases that have got vegetations. So what are the differences? And if you are a student who is answering well, there will be a stage where you might not be able to answer. And that is the cutoff point for assessing any particular student. It is not you are being failed, whether to give you 70 or 75. The examiner wants to decide. Major subheadings. These are the major subheadings. Always be familiar with this kind of feature. You people should be familiar. And also have a sense of assessment. Pathogenesis is the development of a disease. For example, in bronchial asthma, how does the disease develop? Megaloblastic anemia, how does it develop? So it is pathogenesis. Not all questions will be having a pathogenesis. Renal cell carcinoma is a straightforward question. Fracture healing, straightforward. So there may be stages. So we should know the different subheadings and what is applicable to that particular question mission. Definitions. Nobody will ask you define renal cell carcinoma, but they will ask you define neoplasia. Classification is an aid to orderly thinking. Every step is still a step. So it is the right time for you people to take a toddler step. Toddler is a very young child, step by step. And you find it carries you a wrong. It carries you a very long way. Every step is a step. And even if you are taking a toddler step, it will carry you a long way. This particular story, all of us, you find that there is a grasshopper. It is playing the instrument, happily singing. Whereas the ants are collecting the grains or whatever food is possible and they are carrying it, sweating it out. The grasshopper makes fun of them. And in winter, all of you know what happens. The ants eat what they have stored, whereas the grasshopper, it starves to death. So it is the time for us to assimilate and collect. Focus is the number one element of your success. You need not be reading 24 hours and then continuously for all the 365 days. But have a focus, have a sense of direction. What exactly to do? It may take maybe 15 minutes or half an hour or so, but then go in a direction step by step. Always remember your focus determines your reality. These are certain things which we may know or it will get us additional marks. Special specific tests. What are the latest advances? For example, the molecular changes, chromosomal changes, a special investigation, or a special state. When you add these to your answer, you score an additional mark. And moreover, a little picture is worth a million words. Always try to have a line diagram for any answer of this. Subheadings we have already mentioned. Second one is line diagrams. This is extremely important. Do not try to outsmart your teachers or the examiners. That is because they are pioneers in that subject. And when I do try to outsmart them, they can see through it very easily. It is like a young child coming and telling you a lie. Won't you realize it? It is somewhat similar. Please do not do that. It will be disastrous. And what should I have? A basic text. It can be anything. The latest edition of R.A.T.S will be probably a little too much. Maybe the earlier editions, or there is another component called the basic pathology, not the pocket R.A.T.S. Basic pathology is somewhat intermediate, and earlier editions, why I say is, they will be more descriptive. And as multiple editions of books come out, they add the latest points to it, which will be difficult for any student to. For example, Gyanong and Physiology. You must have heard that there are multiple editions, and the latest editions will be very complex but up to date. Your own notes, whatever the teachers take in the class and whatever you prepare, this is going to be the backbone of your entire preparation. And the record, up-to-date record, it is not just scribbling a diagram or copying it from your friends. The record gives us enough information. Go back and see. And these are my other recommendations. These are some books that have been written by me. R.A.T.S is a channel that is being run. It is based on books. It is based on experience. And after seeing this, you will have to go back to your book. It is not a replacement for a book. Secondly, you can take your notes seeing the R.A.T.S. Game is another one. Game means gross and microscopy explained. One page is a book that I have written on hematology. So these are things that you people should be having in mind. And this will be most important. No shortcuts, please. I take one step forward and two steps back. It is tough to get through life like that. But that is what we are doing. We start reading, we stop. We get deviated, again come back, then take one step forward. This is the usual thing that we are doing. We are not consistent. Even a slow one step regularly can take us a long way. Curriculum. First thing is as instructed by your department. It has got pioneers, experienced teachers, enthusiastic juniors who are going to teach you. They are all willing. So, your department. As I had mentioned, the previous question papers, your university as well as another university. And please do know the components of an exam. It can be theory, practical, MCQs is a little different from theory. You'll have to answer the correct one. Viva voce. There will be external examiners, they'll be asking in a different way. But what we know, we will not be able to answer. And finally, there is a competitive exam. Be it NEET or next, it is totally different. But this will be forming the basic for even NEET or next. One cannot be independent of the other. So, for example, I cannot score marks in practical without reading my theory. I cannot be answering my Viva voce without seeing the practical specifics. MCQs. People think that it's going to be just a tick. In fact, it is most catastrophic. In all the other parts, we are able to give the students some grace marks. But MCQ is, it is either right or wrong. You get 100% or 0%. They can make or break your pass. And you should simultaneously read for the competitive exam hand in hand, along with the routine. University must not be ignored for universal achievement. There has been many a student who have been extremely good, but who have been aiming at NEET and they had unfortunately faltered in their own university exam. Please do not make that mistake. And please do remember, when it is MCQs, it is not memorized. Lakhs of questions can be compiled by permutation combination. What are the basic blunders of the students? This, you know, I know. I have made this blunder as a student. Everybody does. Postponing, skipping classes, too many shortcuts. This is, I find, is the most dangerous trend in the students nowadays. Being over smart. Short-term goals. They try to memorize a few days before the test or the exam. Not correlating. And choosing important questions. And remember, what you omit is going to be your question. So this is what I had said, practical and theory go hand in hand. Viva, explain the practical form. So in a practical also they'll ask you, what are the causes for the color changes? How do you classify anemia, etc. It is the speed and the fluency with which we answer that matters. If you are given a lot of time, almost all the students will give the answer, but that is not possible. This is the practical list in pathology. We have got the gross, the slides, instruments, long exercises, short exercises, charts, and OSPE is now a trend. Objective, structured, practical examination. You should rely on the record, the briefing classes, online classes in R.A.T.S and game notes. These are your sources. The marks usually in practical are allotted for performing the exercise, answering the examiner when he comes to you, interpretation. There is no point in me writing that hemoglobin is 8 grams. Now, what does it show? I should be able to infer. Write a descriptive note on anything. I cannot just write iron deficiency anemia. What does the blood picture look like? Seminoma. What does the slide look like? A descriptive note. And whenever a difficult question is asked, I should be able to answer. For example, how do you classify hematuria? There is a renal, pre-renal, and a post-renal cause. Once you say these three words, the examiner will move to the next one. You can't learn to swim without taking the plunge. So obviously you people should take the plunge. Start doing it. And only then you will know where you stand. So in Viva OC also generally this is a pattern. There will be 4 examiners and they divide it like this. So each examiner will be asking some questions and don't take anything for granted. Identifying a specimen or some, that is not sufficient. How well and fluently. And the externals have got very short time in assessing you. So we must be as fluent as possible. And almost have a bird's eye view of the entire thing. So I'm just seeing a forest. But if you go too deep, close to the trees, you will lose track of the woods. You will not see the forest at all. So you will not know the width and the scope of your subject if you are reading a topic too very specific. This is from Robbins. Viva voce. What does it mean? Well, you are on one side of the table, an examiner on the other side. And there might be a row of jars or a tray of instruments, etc. They start asking you the questions. The usual questions will be in this kind of a pattern. How do you define? How do you classify? How do you diagnose? How do you confirm? What is the pathogenesis of this particular one? Do you have any differential diagnosis, etc.? So we must remember one thing. Every day they are going to assess about nearly 30 or 32 students. And the time given to me might not exceed 5 minutes. That itself is too much. So in that short time, an examiner whom I have never seen will be assessing. So my fluency, authenticity, and at the same time, a kind of earnestness is needed with which they will be able to assess. Do not give controversial answers, and as I had mentioned earlier, do not try to outsmart the examiner. An experienced teacher can judge what the student does not know. These are fantastic words. I learned it in another context. And also this, a good teacher will not be vindictive. Vindictive means punishing. They will laugh through the ignorance of the student and yet award some mark for it. In general, nobody fails in a Viva OC, but it can help us score more marks. Please do have this in mind. Blunders of the students. Postponing. I have mentioned it in another context also. Not practicing hands-on. Slides, for example. Students keep taking pictures of it, clicking pictures. It goes into your cell phone and then again, maybe to the computer. But it does not go into your mind. You are not able to answer. You are not able to decipher or too much photography. Bad records. Please do remember, in the end, nothing will be there with you but your record. And you are desperately trying to turn the pages without knowing the particular diagram or answer. Not rehearsing. Even if you know. For example, I also make mistakes in my class. I rehearse and then I repeat. Theory and practical are like heart and brain. One cannot survive without the other. NEET or next, or university or national. Balancing is the art. So you people should be knowing how to balance between the university exam and at the same time you should have a long-term goal also. A recapitulation. Internals are like ignition for success. So they kindle your mind. Do not ignore them. Don't make them dynamites. They will blow you apart. If you totally ignore, you are absent and you get very low marks, you'll have difficulty in qualifying. They will be asking you to come for additional classes, and you're going to waste very precious time. See the curriculum as an entire functioning body. This is a very difficult concept for the student, but required. The question that you omit is your university question. Be strong in your basics. Memorizing MCQs is something like this. So I don't think you need any further comment on this. Building strong, basement weak. Remember the 7 R's. Again, I learned it from a person in a totally different context. Read, repeat, revise, redo, rehearse, remember, review. When you keep practicing this, reading means you need not know the answer at all. When you repeat, you might know something of it. When you revise, again, a greater percentage of it. When you redo, when you mark or you write, you come to know about 60 to 70%. And finally, when you review, you will be knowing 80%. All said and done, you will not be knowing 20%. That doesn't matter at all. If you know 50% of an answer, you are an excellent student. And these are the things. Repetition is the mother of knowledge. Regular and routine reading will be the base for competitive exams. Otherwise, strong building, weak base. Courtesy web pathology. Such a specimen can be there in a jar. Can you guess the probabilities of questions? This is a carcinoma colon. Fine. But then they can ask you about the etiology, about the morphology, how the left side differs from the right side. Why can't it be an ulcer? What are the different ulcers of the intestine? How does it spread if it is a tumor? And it will go on like that. At the same time, you people should decide what is important for a short term and for a long term. And read accordingly to that breadth and depth. The concept of teaching and learning can never be conquered by the teacher or the student. So these are all the various components, but what is the meaning of this particular one? I hope it is in place. So a student, you'll have to read pathology, the basic sciences, preclinical subjects for your NEET, etc. The practicals are there. Sometimes it will be case-based. Then the clinical scenario. So many things. It has to be perfectly balanced. At the same time, you are having your clinical postings. You cannot be ignoring it. So you'll have to deftly balance it, and only then you will be a success. Bienvenidos. What does it mean? I do not know. Kindly find it for me. Thank you.